Okay, hello everyone. This is wmpyr joining with me. We have a very, very special guest here, Mr. Dustin, and he's going to talk to us, share with us some info about his style of Pekiti Tersia Kali. So, hello Dustin, how are you?
Hello. Hi.
Good, good. So, yeah, you already know that I have some of these basic questions mapped out for you. So let's go right away. And
Okay.
first one is, what got you started, or what got you into the martial arts?
So, ever since I was a kid, Saturday, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Saturday afternoon, Kung Fu theater, Black Belt
Yes,
theater.
yes.
I mean, all those guys. I used to watch that as a kid, back in I think it was the 80s when that came out, or the late 70s.
Same
And,
here.
watching Bruce Lee or some of the old, ninja movies, Chuck Norris, and believe it or not, Billy Jack. I saw the old Billy Jack movies that were made,
Right.
and just from there it kind of evolved into an interest in just all kinds of martial arts, and then of course. Other heroes during that time that I had were Rambo,
Mm.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, so Sylvester Stallone, action movies, that sort of thing.
Yes.
And I guess that's what kind of got me interested. I wanted to learn how to fight like that, right? Like the guys that I saw on the movies wanted to be able to move like that. Wanted to be able to pick up a weapon and be able to move like that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it took me a long time before I was able to convince my parents to allow me to do that. But before I was a freshman in high school, I started training in Taekwondo. And at that Taekwondo school, I met my first Jeet Kune Do and Filipino martial arts instructor,
Hmm.
a man by the name of Barry Perino, and trained for him with a while. And then it just kind of evolved from there. And I met different people, you know, um, while I was training in those martial arts. My workout partner for a long time, we both trained under the same guy here in San Antonio. And then we met and started training with Ricky Riera, who was our first Pekiti Tersia Kali instructor.
Hmm.
With him, I trained in Kun Tao Silat de Tours, but I've also done a little bit of Tai Chi and Wing Chun, and just lots of different types of martial arts. But uh, primarily stuck with Pekiti since then. But yeah, that's what got me interested in martial arts. I guess I wanted to learn how to fight like that. I wanted to learn how to move like that, use weapons like that. Ever since I was a kid, for as long as I could remember.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, you mentioned Billy Jack. That was Bong Soo Han, right?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was the stunt coordinator, the fight coordinator, and was that like one of the first times they showed in like over here in the West, like martial arts action on the big screen? That was one of the first big
I,
ones, or
I watched those movies in syndication, probably on television when I was a kid. But
oh,
I'm trying to think if those were some of the first times that I think people did see
right?
martial arts like that, right?
Yes,
And they may have seen simple stuff like in some of the old movies, like a karate chop here or there, or
right.
maybe a judo throw or something. And I think that started to introduce people to it, but uh,
Not like that.
not like that. No, not like Billy Jack. Not like in the in
Mm.
the '70s when all of those movies came here
Hmm.
and they were available here to watch. And I think it kind of took off from there. Of
Right.
course, the martial arts been around here, I guess, since late '60s, early '70s is when it started really getting popular and
Yes.
big. Um, but anyway, yep.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's go to the next question here. Tell us a little about the style that you teach.
Okay, so Pekiti Tersia Kali is a Filipino martial arts, and it's an indigenous Filipino martial art, and it's a family system. The
Mm-hmm.
patriarch of the system is Grand Tuhan Gahe, Leo Gahe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've trained with him just a little bit while he was here in the States, but my instructor is Tuhan Tim Wade, out of Dallas. Now, Pekiti Tertia Kali, what Pekiti means is close. So in Tertia, if you just look at the word, Tertia means like thirds, and we usually use the word quartering or flanking. In other words, you're trying to get to the side of somebody,
Right.
right? As opposed to confront them or engage them right in front of them and stay there right in front of them. So you're constantly trying to move to the side.
Yes.
And of course, Kali refers to the blade, right? It refers to blade. So literally, Pekiti Tersia Kali means something like to third or quarter in close with a blade. Okay, right?
Nice.
And it encompasses all different weapons categories. We start with the single stick, single sword. We focus primarily on it being a sword. We don't consider it an impact weapon. We consider it at all times to be an edged weapon. And that's how we train all of our mechanics. But we do start with the single sword because it's, I guess it's one way of putting it, it's the hardest. When you have equal weaponry with your opponent, and as opposed to having superior firepower, like having two swords to one, or a sword and a knife, or something along those lines. But primarily train with the single sword. Then the other weapons categories that we train in Pekiti are double sword, single knife, double knife, empty hands, and then sword and knife. Those are kind of the primary weapons categories. There are auxiliary weapons categories. Some of them I focus more on, like I do a lot of stuff with the staff or the spear. As you know, on my website, the videos there, I offer some courses there, and I just spend a lot of time with it because I like the staff and the spear. But
yeah.
So the foundation system for Pekiti Tersia Kali is what's referred to as the 12 métodos, or the 12 methods of Pekiti Tersia Kali.
Okay.
And each method teaches you specific strategies and tactics on how to use the single sword in conjunction with the footwork that you use, the foundation system of the footwork.
Okay.
And then the advanced system, which is generally called the contradas, is the what you learn after the 12 métodos. And you can kind of consider them complementary systems in the sense that the 12 métodos is about contact, meeting force on force, whereas the contradas is about following the force, right?
Okay.
Following, like if somebody's delivering an angle 1 attack, you're following an angle 2 attack, right?
Okay.
And so it's meeting versus following,
right?
Which is why it's also taught second as opposed to teaching that first,
right?
It's much harder to learn how to meet somebody's force on force. And learning the timing associated with that, and learning how to really protect yourself with the sword. A lot of footwork involved. You have to be able to move. You can't. You have to be able to protect yourself with the weapon. To be able to attack with the weapon, you have to be able to move your feet. You can't just stay in front of the person, right?
Right.
Pekiti has, I guess, a lot of people know Pekiti or come to Pekiti for its knife work. And that's kind of one of the things that has really gotten Pekiti a lot of attention over the years, is because it seems to be, I'm biased. It's the best knife system I believe that's out there in terms of knife training, learning how to protect yourself with the weapon and learning how to attack with the weapon.
Yes.
But at any rate, so yeah, that's, I guess, kind of Pekiti in a nutshell. We train with the weapons first, and then we go from weapons to empty hands, because weapons transfer to empty hand movements, whereas it's usually not the other way around, right? In most martial arts systems, you learn something different when you go to the weapons, right?
Yes, yes.
Typically.
Well, now, so do you get a lot of requests where people come to you and they're like, I want to learn the knife?
Over the years, I have.
Yes.
And, people will just come and that's all they want to train is just a knife. And I kind of, the knife's based on the sword at the end of the day. And what determines what you're able to do with that weapon is the weapon itself. Right. But in terms of the methods, the 12 methods of single sword, those methods apply to the single knife, they apply to double knife, they apply to double sword, they apply to all the other weapons categories, even the auxiliary ones.
Yes.
Because it's about the strategies and tactics that those methods teach. So honestly, if you're training the single sword, you're going to be training the knife as well. But a lot of people, they'll come to me just wanting to learn knife and only knife. And I tell them, okay, well, I'm going to start you off with single sword.
Yeah.
And we'll progress from there, because that's where you learn the mechanics of striking from.
Right.
You learn the basic mechanics for all of your attacks from the sword.
Right.
And that's the place to begin.
I tell my students it's kind of like, because it's longer, it's easier to learn the mechanics, like a magnifying glass, whereas the knife is more intricate, so it's going to be harder to learn. So that's why we start with a longer weapon. Now you keep mentioning sword. Now the sword for you guys, are you referring to the bolo?
The gunting,
Okay,
gunting,
okay.
gunting,
How
which is
different is that?
it's a slightly, I wish I would have. Uh, I mean, I have weapons sitting around my desk, but I
Okay.
don't have a gunting with me. But it's slightly curved inward, so the blade edge. So if I were holding it here,
Yes.
the blade edge would towards the top would curve inward just a little bit, and
Oh,
it's going to be a thin, long sword, single edge except for at the tip. It's
yes.
going to have a slight edge towards the tip on the back of the side, on the back side of it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we train with rattan sticks, like
Right.
most other Filipino martial arts systems do. But what we are learning in terms of mechanics, it's always the thought process is always the sword first,
Right.
and so the ideal sword for us would be the gunting, but we can pick up a bolo. I can pick up a bolo and use that. I can pick up a barong and use that. I can pick up most any other kinds of blades or weapons and be able to take what I know about the system and apply it to that weapon, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, just curious. This is just me wanting to know how heavy is that compared to like the standard Eskrima stick?
It's a little bit heavier, but
Yeah.
here's the thing: is that so I have a custom one that I had paid to have made, and one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize about weapons training, even with swords, is that you really have to have a customized weapon. And
Mm.
so you'd be surprised, when I got mine, the guy that made it, he'll ask for you to send a picture of your hand because he wants to see what your grip looks like
Right.
to kind of get an idea of what the diameter of the grip should be, right? And so when I got mine back, it felt pretty good, but it still felt a little heavy.
Okay.
Now, what's kind of surprising is when you start taking a little bit more, grinding down the handle a little bit more, so
Yeah.
you can get a good grip on it. It
Yes.
becomes lighter because you can apply more muscular force with your forearms to the grip and have more control over it if you have the proper grip.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just picking up anything, and the grip hasn't been sized for you,
Right.
then it may feel too heavy. It may feel too light if somebody's really big or something like that.
Yes.
And so I think that there was probably people that really took sword fighting seriously back during the day. They probably had customized or
Custom made. Yeah.
something that fit their grip that they liked. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Or they
Nice.
altered it so it would fit their grip.
Yes.
But when I ground that down, I was surprised. That the tip will feel heavy, but when you have a better grip, that it gets lighter. So there is some of a weight difference, but if you're practicing the mechanics correctly and swinging correctly, then I can pick up my sword and swing it just as effectively as I can rattan stick.
Nice. Nice. So it makes all the world in the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It really does. Yeah.
Okay. So then let me go to the next one, which is who is your teacher? Why don't we focus more into like your current teacher right now?
Okay.
Because obviously you've
Tuan
had
Tim
a
Wade.
lot. So yeah.
Tuan Tim Wade. Yes, he's a. So when I started training with Tuan Tim Wade in 2000, I had been doing Pekiti Tersia since at least 1990. So I'd already been doing it for a while.
Right.
What I learned there was what Grand Tuan Gahe was teaching, which was the 64 attacks, and I spent a lot of time, focusing on the 64 attacks and the flow drills. But when I started training with Tuhan Tim, there was a lot of puzzle pieces that were filled in because he had spent 5 years training with Grand Tuan Gahe, and had the time to ask him questions, and so there was a lot of puzzle pieces that were filled in that for me, and so I just kept training with him, and I've been training with him since then. And like I said, the way he talked, the way he talked about timing,
Yeah.
the way he talked about martial arts in general and strategy and tactics, given my background, it made sense to me, because he made it very concrete. And before it was, so for example, an example is, before when I was training in other martial arts, I might learn a form,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would ask my instructor, okay, so how do I apply this form in the fight? And it seemed like the best I ever got was, well, you just do it. And it seemed like there was something missing there. But all of the forms that we teach in Pekiti Tersia Kali, everything that I've learned from Tim, he teaches you, how it fits the strategy. So, how do I protect myself with this? How do I neutralize their weapon with this particular attack? How am I able to execute an offense or a counter offense with this attack? And and the excuse me, sorry, and the tactics that are involved with the use of that weapon.
Yes.
So he made it very concrete. He didn't use language like, and I know a lot of martial artists will use language like they'll talk about principles and concepts,
Right.
but they almost exclusively talk about principles and concepts, as opposed to what's the tactical application of this, right? What's the timing for me to be able to execute this effectively and successfully? What footwork do I use to put this series of attacks together?
Yes.
And it's just the way he talked about those sorts of things really made sense to me, and it made things click in such a way with not only the Filipino martial arts, but all the other martial arts I had trained in before as well. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I started training with Tim exclusively and kind of stopped training the other martial arts that I had learned,
Okay.
and just focused on him because I wanted to master one martial art,
Right.
And so I knew I could get the knowledge and the understanding from him to do that.
Right.
So
It sounds like for you, the way he presented it, he made it very tangible. For
yes,
you.
tangible is a good word. That's a great word.
Right.
Tangible.
Yeah, and then like you said, the others kind of had like that missing link where you go, how do I make that translation? Whereas
Yeah.
he provided a more direct into application there. You felt from the learning to the application, it was a more direct line.
I think that's right. I think that's correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's great. That's always great when you're able to find that. Yeah. So, so the next question, let's go to. Okay, so for you, some of the training that you received, what was the training like back in the day? So,
well, let me first talk before I started training with Tim. Cause,
yes.
So back in the '90s, when I was training with my first instructor, Ricky Riera, I've done the full contact stick fighting, where I would pad up. Me and my workout partner with Ricky, we'd pad up. We had to flip a coin to see who got the Dosi Perez gear, or to see who got the Kendo gear, because there was no head in the back of the Kendo gear, right?
Okay.
There was no padding back there, right?
Yes.
So it was just over top. And then we would wear the rest of the padding and the Taekwondo chest pads and all that kind of stuff, and just get in there and for the lack of calling it anything better, just beat the crap out of each other with sticks.
Yeah.
I've walked away with, and I thought it was a great thing then. I've walked away with bruises and everything all over myself, but as I get older, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time doing that. And I've seen a lot of people get lots of serious injuries from doing that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And looking back, training with Tim now and focusing on the system as an edged system, there's lots of things that I did when, in my full contact stick sparring days that you can't do with a sword. I mean, you can't trade blows with a knife or a sword, right? You have to learn how to protect yourself with it, and if you're going up against somebody who's good and they understand that as well, I mean, maybe you both walk away having not been able to land a single attack on each other.
Right.
I would consider that a success, right? In an actual sword or a knife fight, right?
Yes.
That mean I lived without, I'm walking away, right?
Absolutely.
But so the stick sparring back then, and those were fun days. I enjoyed it. I was young, and so I could get away with abusing my body in those ways that I can't get away with now. but it's very much like, putting on boxing gloves, and like a lot of the, like a lot of the sparring that I did in my Taekwondo or karate days. It's very much like that, right? You just get in there and you punch and you duke it out.
Right.
But I guess the difference was, from then versus now is that you just realize you can't do that if the guy's got two knives in his hand and you have two knives in your hand, or he's got a sword in his hand and I have a sword in my hand. I was also a lot more energetic back then, so I was probably probably able to move faster, quicker, because I was younger and all that. So
Right.
that's a major difference. So not that not that I'm an old, I can still move pretty fast, and I can still hold my own to somebody that's a couple of years younger than me. So,
Right.
but, yeah, I guess that was a big difference in the way training was then versus the way training was now. And looking back on some of those, honestly, one could interpret some of those like if I'm walking away with, with bruises on my arms or bruises on the inside of my legs or something like that. Is that really a training success, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
or if God forbid, I have an injury, right?
Mhm.
I'm gonna carry with me up until
Yeah.
my age now,
Right.
right?
Right.
That you have to go and get surgery for or something like that. Then um, that seems like I mean, to me, that seems like a training failure as well, right? And the Tim always says, and he constantly said, and he continues to say this now, is the martial arts should be restorative. We should, if we're training correctly, and I believe this, if we're training correctly and properly, we should be able to do that without injuring each other, right?
Mhm.
Now, I'm not talking about, yeah, of course we get little bangs on the knuckles here or there, and stuff like that, but
Right.
nothing that's debilitating, and,
Right.
and nothing that's causing these huge, stick long bruises on me or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I guess that's a big difference of the way I train now versus the way I trained then back in the day, so to speak. But yeah, and I worry more now about injuries than I did then because I was younger.
Yeah.
Of course, right? But so anyway, yeah, that's a big difference, I guess I would say.
Yes. Yes. So looking back on it, when we can say we were younger and dumber at the time.
Yeah, younger and dumber. Yeah.
Did you say like there's got to be a smarter way to train, and now you feel like you're doing that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another thing that clicked with me when I started training with Tuan Tim is the you were learning. And if you look at some old video footage, here's a good example. If you look at some old video footage of, say, like Mike Tyson's trainer, there's old video footage of him telling interviewers, "I train my fighters not to get hit,"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And that's how he taught Mike Tyson, and that's how he taught his other fighters. And so when somebody tells you, we should be training not to get hit, as opposed to what are those sayings that you always hear out there? Well, you're going to get hit, right? If you get into a knife fight, you're going to get cut. Well, shouldn't our psychology be different? I mean, statistically speaking, if you're going out there and getting into lots of fights or you're getting into lots of knife fights, just statistically speaking, the odds of you getting hit or cut or stabbed are going to go up, right? I mean, that's just math, right?
Right. Right.
Lady luck. But it doesn't follow from that that's the way you ought to be training. You ought to be training not to get hit, right? You should be training, okay, how do I protect myself? Absolutely, because I can't take a cut. I can't take a thrust, right? And I don't care what age you are. You can't. There's no reason why you should be trading those things off. We can't trade off hits if we're not. I mean, if we don't have any pads on, right? And we're out there and we're trying to protect ourselves on the street, in a real combat situation or in a real self-defense or personal protection situation, we can't trade blows, right? I mean, you can't just walk in with somebody and who's swinging a weapon at you and start swinging a weapon at him, right?
Right.
That makes sense. And so that was one of the things is training not to get hit.
Yes.
And that's a big difference, I would say.
Big difference. Yeah. I mean, you look at some of the samurai stuff, right? And you look at the kendo stuff. with the kendo, you see a lot of contact going on, and they're
Oh yeah.
hitting each other back and forth. And then you watch, I know, of course, this is a movie, but you see those samurai movies, and now they like don't move.
Right.
They can't come in now all of a sudden. So
Yeah.
it's like you could see at least the concept of wow. It's now like every move like it's weighs heavier because one mistake can do it.
Oh yeah. If we're talking about a blade, yeah, absolutely.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So no, very very interesting stuff. So let's go to the next question. So I guess this is maybe kind of related. Do you have any wild martial arts related stories? Maybe.
Wild martial arts. I looked at. I don't know if I have any wild martial arts related stories other than uh, just the usual sort of things, and maybe to other people they would seem wild. I don't really think about them as wild or anything like that.
Okay.
I do remember this one time I was at a seminar, a workshop where somebody, and so I was with a group of guys there. We had gone to this workshop at the seminar, and this was my first Pekiti instructor, Ricky Riera. And so there was this guy that started working in with us, partnering up with us. And I didn't even realize I did it, but so he was kind of roughing up some of the guys in our group. Like he was going a little too rough.
Ah.
And so when I started working with him, I guess somewhere on an unconscious level or something that bothered me. So I was really rough with him, right? In terms of, throwing him, and just all the techniques that I practiced and everything like that. I don't know if I'd really call that wild or not because I'm typically a laid back kind of guy.
Yes.
But, my instructor at the time, Ricky Riera, he made that comment. He was like, wow, you really kind of went off on him there. And I was
you turned up the heat? Yeah.
Yeah. And there's some other crazy things that have happened over the years, just people you come across that, right, they're not quite right or something like that. When you're seminars or workshops, there's always one or two of those people that are just not quite right. You kind of wonder whether they should be training at all, right? But, nothing really wild that I can think of.
In that kind of situation, it's a given. If you're an instructor, you're going to encounter that. So do you take them aside or do you, I see a lot of people, they try to just like, if they whip them a little bit, they feel like it'll teach them a lesson. But sometimes that doesn't, they don't get it, maybe a broken screw or something, but.
Right. So you just made me think there was this one other guy. I had a group of guys that I was training and one guy started working with us. And he wouldn't do it with me, but he would kind of like go a little rougher with all of my other students, right, and kind of push the envelope a little bit. And I don't know why. Like I said, there's always those people, right? They come in, circulate themselves in and out. I eventually had to let him go for other reasons,
okay.
But yeah, and I usually take people aside and I address those concerns in class all the time because we are doing a weapons-based art.
Yes.
So I want to make sure that everybody's safe and that we're fighting the safe fight, so to speak, and we're training safely. And I remind everybody, you're in control of your weapon, nobody else. You need to make sure where you're swinging it, who's around you, and all that kind of stuff. But most of the guys that I've had for a while, they're all pretty good. If I need to turn it up, quote unquote, a little bit in class, in terms of moving around or whatever, because I feel like somebody's, trying to challenge me or test me, and those have happened, over the years because I've been doing this for a while. You'll get somebody that wants to come in, and
of course,
and I'll turn it up a little bit, and nothing ever really comes of it. I think that they see the light in terms of the skill set that's there and the training that's there and how valuable it is for them if they want to stick around.
Right.
I did have this one guy that we were knife sparring, and I don't know how we ended up. For the life of me now, I don't know how we ended up knife sparring. But it was in a class, and I don't know how many times I would come in and cut across his head.
Yes.
And at the same time, he would cut across my midsection.
Okay.
After I had already started to
right.
his head, right?
Yeah.
And I did that multiple times, but he never got the point. And so, there's it's like not a good trade-off for him. If I'm able to cut you across the eyes
Right.
With a backhand strike or number two, you don't have an opening anything else. If you're thinking about anything other than protecting yourself from my attack,
Right.
if I'm the one attacked first and I'm ahead in timing, then you don't know how to protect yourself with the weapon.
Yes.
You don't know how to protect yourself, right?
Right.
You're just willing to engage in mutual destruction and trade off a shot. And I've had guys like that over the years that come in and out. But yeah, nothing really wild. Yeah, nothing too wild. I did have a rubber training knife during one seminar. A guy that I was working with got a little too wild, and I kid you not, it went between my eyeball and, like, I would say he probably was a good inch, 3/4 an inch to an inch down the side of my eyeball. I mean, I had to sit out for about an hour of that seminar workshop because I couldn't.
Oh my goodness!
I couldn't keep training for a little while after that.
That's insane.
And everybody was just excited and stuff. And it probably would have been a smart thing if we would have had goggles on.
Right, right.
Wow. But it's those kinds of things that we have to.
Yes, yeah, a rubber knife. How soft? How soft was it?
It's just the Boker training ones, like the Applegate Fairbane Boker rubber training knives. A little bit softer than what the rubber training knives you can get from Cold Steel, but not as soft as those real flimsy ones.
Right.
They're pretty solid.
Yeah. Oh my goodness! Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go to the next question. That was pretty intense. Yeah. So, what are some of the most important lessons that you learned, through martial arts, just off the top of your head, or
Truly, it has been, and this may sound cliche or whatever, but I sought martial arts for all the reasons that you asked me with the first question. Right? It was exciting. I wanted to learn how to fight like that. I wanted to learn how to move like that. But I think, and you would probably agree, since you're a martial artist as well, martial artists, once you get into it, it becomes a part of who you are. It becomes kind of a lifestyle, because I've thought about getting out of the martial arts multiple times over the course of my life, but I just can't pull myself away. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so here I am teaching Pekiti now. And so I guess, confidence, self-confidence, self-discipline, self-control, and some of the things, and those are the things that you would expect to learn from martial art, right?
Yes.
Especially when I started training in Pekiti with Tuhan Tim. And the reason for that is because I was still up in Norman, Oklahoma, and I really didn't have with my wife, I really didn't have a training partner. So I just had to spend a lot of repetition on my own, which is one of our training phases and processes is individual execution and training, which is mental and physical mastery of oneself. Mm-hmm. And that's the self-discipline phase, right?
Right.
And that's what solo training is all about, is disciplining yourself so you can put in the time to get better.
Right.
And what that really means is one of the things that I learned. And then as a result, I guess, over the years, of course, of developing a certain skill set, confidence and control come with that. But then I would also say I've had the opportunity to meet lots of different people. I've traveled across the United States, people from all different parts of the world, different backgrounds, and it really has given me appreciation just for the uniqueness and diversity of people in general. Because you start to realize, I was born in South Texas, into a conservative household, and and so you can probably imagine what that's like growing up in South Texas in a conservative Christian household, and
yes.
Sort of the sorts of things you're exposed to, right? But when you start meeting people from all across the world, right? You realize that people are different, and they have different beliefs and they have different values, and I don't want to really say different values, because I think that there's a core set of values there that we all share in the martial arts
across the board.
Value.
Yes,
and but you also realize that people come from different backgrounds at the same time,
right?
And that I really developed an appreciation for that, and just in the acceptance of that diversity that's there. And I hate to use the word, I know a word that people use a lot is tolerate, but I don't feel like I'm tolerating diversity, or that people are different. because that seems like we tolerate something that we find negative, right?
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I'm not going to say tolerate diversity, because the world would be a boring place if it weren't diverse. I'll put it that way. And so I guess the uniqueness is another thing that I learned and I valued and appreciated the most. People from all different walks of life. And at the end of the day, they're just people, right? We're all just people. So.
Yeah, I mean, and think about it. You are a Texan who has been enjoying a Filipino martial art. So,
Filipino martial art, yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. So, okay. The next question is, what can your students expect from attending your class?
So I just straightforwardly, I guess, I bow in and bow out at the beginning of class, into class, we bow in and bow out. Warm up at the beginning, we go over footwork. I teach footwork almost regularly, religiously at the beginning of class. And then from there, we'll go into the forms of Pekiti, moving around a little bit, and then we'll do combat applications out of the system. And but on top of that, I guess, mechanics, I teach the mechanics. I teach the combat flow. I want them to acquire the knowledge and understanding of Pekiti Tersia Kali. So I expect them to come in ready to think about what they're doing, and not just me there. Okay, do this 100 times, do this 50 times, right?
Right.
Because I think that tactical training requires tactical thinking, and I believe that if you're not while we're training the martial arts, if we're not thinking about it tactically, strategically,
Yes.
Because martial means ever related to war, right?
Right.
Or fighting. If we're not thinking about it that way while we're training it, then all we're doing at the end of the day is memorizing movements, right? Or you know what I mean? Just rote memorization or mimicry or something like that.
Yes.
As opposed to attaching a strategic and tactical meaning to everything we're doing. Right. How is this going to protect me, right? How am I going to protect somebody else, right? So I think that's what I expect. That's what I hope that they can expect when they come. That's what I try to do. Sometimes we get a really good workout. Sometimes the workout's more cerebral and less physical. Mm-hmm. It just kind of depends upon the day of the week. But I vary up the weapons categories as well. So we won't spend all the time training with single stick. We'll move, from single stick, single knife, empty hands versus knife, empty hands. So that's another thing that they can expect is I will try to, and I make connections to everything connects back to the single sword or the single stick.
Right. One system, various weapons, right?
One system, various weapons. That's right. Yep.
So you mentioned combat flow. Is that more like a drill type things that you're talking about? Or? Yeah.
Yes. So when I say flow drills, and that's, I think, one of the things that Filipino martial arts has going for it that lots of other martial arts maybe don't, although I've seen, Wing Chun's got Chisao, Tai Chi's got push hands, and there's some other variations of it. But, yeah, when I say flow drill, the two-man combat drills that typically involve a certain sequence of strikes, paying attention to footwork and timing and the back and forth in terms of timing in combat.
Yes.
So yeah, and people use the word flow in lots of different ways.
Right.
They talk about flow states, mental flow states,
mm-hmm.
So we can talk about that as well in the context of a combat drill. But just straightforwardly, when I talk about combat drills, I mean the two or flow drills, the two-man combat drills, right? Partner drills.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, it's always nice to have an instructor that can explain the tactics, because that's your game plan. If you don't have the game plan, then like you said, it's like, okay, I got the weapons, I got the moves, but then what? Right. It's So you need the game plan, to go with that. So very important. So now we come to the last three. Thank you so much so far. It's been super, super fun for me listening to your answers and everything, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. So let's go to the last three here. What are some of the things that you focus on when you teach? So this kind of kind of related to what we just talked about. But yes.
Footwork a lot,
Mm-hmm.
correct mechanics, mastery of the weapon, and that's going to come from the execution of the correct mechanics. I think
Okay.
I focus on those in class, and because I want them to learn it correctly. Because at the end of the day, as one of the first things that I remember Tim saying is, I have a moral obligation as an instructor to teach people how to protect themselves effectively, utilizing the tools that they have.
Right.
And so that's what I focus on.
Okay. Okay. Nice. 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 All right. So the next one is, what do you want your students to get out of your classes?
Um, a little bit of a workout, a little bit of a physical workout, a little bit of a mental workout.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be able to move and strike. I think those two things are very important. Not just not be able to connect what they're doing with their hands to their feet. So that's why I spend time with the footwork, and then the striking is because I want them to, when they leave a class, okay, how do I execute these attacks, and then how do I put them together with some sort of a footwork?
Okay.
And I always come back to that almost every single time. So that's one of the things that I hope that they get out of that and leave with. Yeah.
So when beginners come in, do you tend to notice that it's separated, like their legs are kind of dead, and then they're just doing the arms? It doesn't go together. Do you kind of notice that separation?
Yes, and that's why our training methodology is we train the footwork separately.
Mm.
We practice the footwork drills separately, and we practice the striking mechanics separately from the footwork drills. And so that way, to some degree, the neural pathways have already formed. You already have that quote-unquote muscle memory. And so when you start getting into moving with somebody else or start moving on your own, your feet kind of already have an idea of what to do, or your hands kind of already have an idea of how to put those two things together.
Yes, yes. Because to do both from the beginning can be daunting, right?
Yes.
Right.
It can be difficult to learn, yeah.
Yes.
And hard, yeah, without a doubt.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, all right, then the last one is, what are your future goals pertaining to martial arts?
Just keep training, and hopefully keep training people, and so they can acquire knowledge and understanding of Pekiti. I'm also trying to get more firearms classes going. So hopefully in the future, I'm going to be able to offer more in terms of close quarter firearms training. I'm an LTC instructor for the state of Texas, and so continue to teach LTC classes as well. But yeah, just continue to teach, doing what I'm doing. Yeah.
Now, one thing that I noticed, are you still teaching behind North Star Mall?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I train out of Train SA,
yes,
which is a gym there at by North Star Mall. That's correct. Yep.
That is crazy because I used to live around there. I mean, like
really?
right behind North Star Mall. So I would work out there. So it's a small world.
Yeah, small world. Yeah.
So great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, Dustin. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Okay. So that's it for now, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Take care.